Okay, this video is advice for college students. It's back to school time. Everybody can tell because there's more traffic. Okay, best college to go to is, it depends on the person, but I would say the cheaper the better. I had the experience, I went to Stanford in my pre-med dorm, in my freshman dorm, 12 kids wanted to be pre-meds. Only four of us ended up getting into medical school. And the reason was Stanford was such a difficult school, the rest of them all just dropped out of pre-med. There used to be an A students in high school. They freak out when they start getting C's in college. So what I'm saying is, why not just go to a college that's easier? The first 2 years are totally generic. They're the same everywhere. You sit in a giant lecture hall and they try to weed you out. Why not just go to a place that's easier? So my experience was, the average SAT at Stanford is probably like 99.5% or something in the pre-med classes. And then I go to medical school, and tons of kids had gone to these local commuter colleges, inexpensive places. They did fine, okay? They all graduated from med school. So what I'm saying is, why pay high tuition for some expensive undergraduate college when you don't need to? It's a waste of money. Okay, and the teaching was not good. The teaching was not good at the big fancy places. I've got friends that went to Ivy League schools, other big name schools, in Stanford, and the professors at these big name places, they don't care about teaching undergrads. Undergrads to them are just a bunch of lowlifes. Okay, they sort of fund the school, but nobody cares about them. So you go to junior college, you'll have some teacher there who's sort of desperate to get hired back again, wants more students to come to their classes. So they try hard to teach you. They actually care about you. They want you to do well. So I took some classes in the summer at junior college, and they were much better teaching than what I got during the regular year. Plus, you got more time, so you want to take your difficult classes at those junior colleges in the summer. Nice to go home. You can live at your parents' house, and you'll save money. You'll have your parents, maybe your mom to cook for you. You can, by not having to pay for a dorm, you'll have better quality food at home. If you can go to college online, I would go online because you want to save that money for the future if possible, for graduate school or for something else, starting a business or something. If you want to live somewhere, like let's say you really want to live in a certain state, go there for college. Seriously think about going there for college. You get to know the place, okay? You get anchored into a place, it's hard to move. Plus, then you get a girlfriend, you get her pregnant or something, and you're going to be stuck in some place, Johnny 99 forever, okay? If you don't know what to study, then you especially should go to a junior college first. Save money, experiment a little bit, figure it out, do a lot of reading. If you want to study science, get good at it, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about how to do that. If you want to study humanities, get good at that too. Always try to be the best you can be in whatever you do. Michael Sugrue, the great philosophy teacher, said, he knew he wanted to study philosophy, so when he was college age, he decided one year to read the entire Bible cover to cover, the next year to read all of Nietzsche cover to cover, everything Nietzsche had written, and then Shakespeare. And so that's interesting. Do something a little crazy like that, and it'll distinguish yourself. Other things, okay, how to succeed in a tough class. You never want to walk into a class unprepared and just show up like a chump. You always want to plan the class, plan your approach to the class, and you always want to have an advantage, okay? My freshman year, I was a little chump. I didn't know any better. My parents are both fuzzy foreigners. I never took an honors class in high school. I didn't even know what an honors class was. I didn't know what an AP class. I knew what an honors class was. I didn't know what an AP class was. So I would just walk in the room like a chump and hope everything turned out well. But once I learned school, I would never do that afterwards. Really good students, if they're going to take a difficult class coming in the autumn, they're going to be studying it in the summertime. Maybe even taking not for credit class in the summer, or at least doing an online class to really be dialed in and ready to go. For example, I knew calculus would probably be real difficult for me at Stanford, so I just took it in summer school, and that was beneficial. I had a lot more time to fix all my weaknesses in algebra, trigonometry, and all that other stuff. Later on, I took my physics in summer school also, again, because I knew I'd be competing against the Stanford kids during the regular year, and I was so busy wrestling and taking my other classes, I didn't want to do that. First semester, take a really light course load, figure out what it takes to get an A in college. Typically, college isn't conceptually that much more difficult than high school. It's just that there's tons more homework, tons more. Simplify your life. You can only focus on one or two things, And so basically, I focused on being an athlete and trying to be a good student. And school was my top priority. I wish I had made wrestling a higher priority in the beginning. But anyways, try to fall in love with the subject. You get good at it. I talked about The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. This guy falls in love with this girl, written in about 1800. He keeps writing letters to his friend. He's in love with a girl named Charlotte. I love the way she walks. I love the way she talks. I love the way she interacts with her siblings, the way she dresses, the way she smiles, the way she laughs. And the point I'm saying is, if you love your subject, whatever it is, biology or something, that much, you'll be great at it. And, this idea of a fixed intelligence, it's really overrated. There's a certain amount of, genetic intelligence that a person has, but you can dramatically increase that by being in love with the subject and also developing good study skills. In my opinion, most college students are a bunch of chumps. They pay all these expensive tuitions and they don't have good study skills. Just because you got an A in high school, that doesn't mean you have good study skills, okay? A lot of people can get good grades in high school just because they're kind of smart. My attitude about study skills, like I said at Stanford, the average SAT score was like about 99.5 percentile. So if you want to be able to outcompete that group, and I was an A-plus student in that group, I was a very dominant student in that group, you want to have good study skills, and I can guarantee you don't have them because no one is taught these things. The only way you could possibly have good study skills is if your parents taught you, because otherwise almost all students have lousy study skills. I really emphasize that because people who don't know anything about school think that that's not a big deal. It's a giant issue. Okay, you want to learn stuff, how condensed notes are used, walk and talk options, okay, self-test options, SIRS, spaced interval repetition systems, Lightner boxes, Anki. I got separate lectures on study skills, separate lectures on how to raise IQ, how to become a genius, all of these things. But basically, to have the big picture of what you're getting into, college is just a memorization contest, so you want to be good at memorization. Well, who's good at memorization? Memory contest champions. Study memory contest champions, okay? Study all the techniques they use. I think a great book to get started with study skills is Super Memory Super Student by Harry Lorraine. He's a great memory techniques champion, okay? I wrote a book called Straight A at Stanford and on to Harvard, how I basically transformed myself from a mediocre student to being a great student. I graduated first in my medical school class, and my medical school, my residency boards, which was really only top 10-15% of the students in the class get into diagnostic radiology at that time. I was done with my boards in like an hour and 10 minutes, 4.5 hour test with a perfect score. So I was really all over academic studies. So I go through all the different note-taking systems and stuff. A couple other things about taking a difficult class, like biochemistry. Pre-read the night before. I would read for a couple hours the night before a lecture so that I would walk in and I'd have the syllabus so I know what the topic was. If possible, buy the notes from the previous note, like the co-op notes. Buy the notes. They'll sometimes keep them from the previous year because the classes don't change much from year to year. Go through them as much as you can because then you have all the vocabulary, you have abbreviations for the vocabulary, you have a general sense of the concepts. So when you're sitting in that class, you're just focusing on trying to turn it into almost a review of your pre-read rather than completely new material. I would actually sit in the front row and I pretend I was like a goalie and I don't want this teacher to get anything past me. And I went from only being able to grasp about 15% of a biochemistry lecture to getting, close to 85-90% of it. And then, the little extra 10-15%, I would quickly try to figure that out in the next couple of days. And I crushed biochemistry. I was like the best biochemistry student in the whole United States. That's how I did it amongst medical students. That's how I did it, by just being obsessed with biochemistry. And say to yourself, I said to myself, biochemistry is a language of God, how he writes the book of life. I want to be a great doctor or scientist, and therefore I must learn this. And it's exciting to learn this, and my father would say things to me too, like, you're lucky to go to school. Ever since the beginning of history, 95% of people have been peasants, okay? Illiterate peasants, scratching the dirt just to try to find some food for themselves, okay? You're lucky to get to go to school. You're lucky you're not up on the front lines, at D-Day or something, getting shot at, and to get to go to school and twirl a pencil around, you're pretty damn lucky, so quit your whining. My dad was kind of harsh with me, but I think that was kind of good. My mom was real nice and unconditional loving to me, and the balance between the two, I think, helped me. Make a promise to yourself. I see all these kids, going around, kind of prep school kids, and they all had an advantage on me, and I thought, oh, they're going to get the A's, I'll be lucky to get a B. But after a while, I said to myself, why not me? Why can't I get an A? What's it going to take for me to get an A? So I just pushed myself. Just study way more than you think you need to. Just try to be on top of everything. Say to yourself, I want to be the best student in the class, and try to be the best student in the class. The reason is if you try to be the best student in the class, do whatever you can to get there, you'll start to figure out what works and what doesn't work. But if you don't ever try that hard, and you just do what everyone else does, highlight your notes and look at your book, you'll have a hard time rising above mediocrity. So pre-reading the night before makes a giant difference. That's super important to do. You can nowadays with the internet, there was no internet when I went to college. You could watch the videos the night before. When you read a book, mark it up, write in the margins, marginalia you might call that. Summarize in the back page. I will write in the back page of a book all my findings. Like here's a book I read recently about the history of geniuses. I'll summarize in the back of the book all the key points, okay? And I'll even cross-reference those and the numbers to the page number and stuff. That way I can very quickly review the book. Like right here, I've cross-referenced it to page numbers. I can very quickly review the book and get everything out of it. See, when I read a book, I put all these post-it notes in there. I'll circle stuff. I'll put a little asterisk near a key point. I might write on the page what I think is a key point. Sometimes I would even buy 2 copies of a book and rip pages out of it and stick them into another book. That was later on when I was making my illustrated condensed notes. But I'm just saying it's a memorization contest, so get good at memorizing stuff. Everybody's smarter the second time around they've seen the material, so read the night before for the tough classes and you'll be more ready. Or watch a video, you'll be more ready. And I read a book too, I'll dog-ear the pages. Dog-ear the pages just to fold the thing back like that. Again, I show you the post-its. For books that I would go back to all the time, my condensed notes things, I'd make tabbed things in the margins for them. Learn all you can about study skills. Okay, let's see, what else? Some people like those iPad tablets for taking notes in class. They're good for illustrations. I never used those because they weren't around when I was young. Let's see. School is where you go to get grades and certifications, and you pay to get those certifications. That's why the cheaper you can get that certification, the better. How you actually get educated on your own, though, that's something different. And because my father really liked reading, I sort of kind of had an interesting background, My Irish family is much more literate. They're much more into books and talking about books. But my Puerto Rican side of my family, they're actually much smarter. There's a lot more doctors, but they don't really give a rat's ass about literature. And so I find the Irish more interesting, even though a lot of my Irish relatives are kind of stupid and obnoxious, okay? They're very nice, a lot of them too, but, they're not, their IQs are not as high as my Puerto Rican family. It's kind of weird, but that's very much true. So anyways, from my father, I got this idea of it's a great thing for a man to be educated. A man should be able to discuss literature, history, philosophy, religion. And because of that, I wanted to be educated. So we had to take a class like Western Civilization, it was called. And so we read all these things like The Idiot and the Oddity, by Homer. We read, all these traditional books. Augustine, we read Boethius, Cicero, you name it. And Thucydides and stuff, and I liked all that, and I thought that was good. So I think the humanities, the liberal arts, if you will, liberal arts means an education for a free man. They teach you to be articulate. They teach you to be more sophisticated in your thinking. So even if you're going to go pre-med or some other science field, do not think that stuff's a joke. If you want to be able to speak effectively and be able to debate effectively, you want to know that stuff. You want to be good at writing. I think if you can write well, you'll tend to be able to think well and speak well. So it's well worth it to take a class in writing. And you have to realize, a lot of times, your class in writing will be stupid at the school. Whenever you take a class at school, do what you have to do to get a grade, but on top of it, make sure you're learning. For example, one of my sons had a required freshman writing class, okay? And I kind of gave him some advice, helped him with the writing for this one of his papers. He had a teacher who was a big fatso, and he wrote about diabetes, and I kind of guided him to the good references and stuff. The kid did a good job writing the paper, and then he got like a B- on it. And the kid was very disappointed in that. It was unfair. The teacher ripped him off on a grade. And then the kid, I was busy working a lot. The kid didn't speak to me almost the whole rest of the semester. And then at the end of the semester, I'm like, hey, how'd that writing class go? He goes, oh, it turned out fine. And I'm like, oh, you had nobody else, grading your paper, checking your punctuation and spelling? And he's like, oh, it worked out fine. I found out he had his little sister who was like in 8th grade. And my kid said to me, he goes, Dad, you don't understand college professors, His little sister in 8th grade, he said, she thinks like a college professor. And I said, that says more about your college professor than it says about me. I know a lot about writing. I've actually written a book on writing techniques, and, believe me, I've studied that subject very extensively. So the point I'm saying is that's what a joke college classes are, that the kid, got better grades being coached by an 8th grader than being coached by me. Okay. He said that basically the teacher was a big fatso and didn't believe in all this vegan stuff. He thought it was a bunch of nonsense, and that's why I gave him a bad grade. Okay, anyways, how do you really educate yourself? You have to do it on your own. School's just there for certifications and grades. If you get good teachers, you're lucky. Most college teachers are not that good. A lot of times they don't speak English so well, or they don't care about teaching, or they just go by the book, and the books are all mediocre. So really educating yourself is something you do on your own. You get what you can from school. You get what you can from lucky. If you're lucky enough to have a friend you could talk to, try to have at least one smart friend you could talk to and study with. If you hang around smart people, you'll be smarter. If you hang around people getting good grades in school, you will get better grades. It just works that way. So try to have at least one person as an academic friend. Remember, it's a sprint. Keep your act together. If a lot of people move from one year to the second year, well, make sure you have all your books organized so you can quickly have your bookshelves ready to go. A goal should be, get what your degrees to help you get a job and make money if that's what your plan is, but also, plan to be just well educated. A well educated man can talk about a wide variety of subjects. You need to read a lot. Read in your bathroom. My other videos, Magic Bathroom, I talk all about having a table in your bathroom for reading, having Lightner boxes, flashcards in your bathroom. If you just read for something you don't know what the heck you want to read study skills. If you've read all the study skills, then read biographies like of men who self-developed themselves. Like Ben Franklin's a good self-developing person. Self-improvement books like Brian Tracy, Maximal Achievement are good. Maxwell Maltz is good. Things that get you psyched up. Let's see. Keep a journal or a text file on your computer of certain topics, so you can always keep building up that information. I used to like, though, having a book where I put all my notes into the book, because you're never going to lose your book. Your computer could crash. At least back it up, with something on a thumb drive or something, so you don't lose the material. But anyways, that's kind of what it comes down to. It's a memory contest. Get good at memorization. Get good at study skills. Avoid spending a lot of money so you figure out what you want to do. And even then, if you can get your education cheaper, get your education cheaper. And have the attitude, why not me? Why can't I be the best student? And I sort of made a pledge, to my mother, I'm going to be the best doctor or scientist I could possibly be. I was also grateful to God. He gives me a chance to get an education rather than having to be, a peasant just, scratching the dirt trying to grow a little food and starving. So anyways, I hope that helps you to get perspective and have a good year in college.